So what exactly is JQuery? JQuery is a library of JavaScript code that makes it easier, again, to connect the brains of your program with the front end formatting and website that the user actually sees. So it connects the JavaScript to the HTML and CSS. And you could just write this all in JavaScript itself. I won't go into the details as to why that's kind of a little annoying and clunky, but you can definitely go ahead and do that. You don't have to use jQuery. jQuery is just a way that basically takes a bunch of JavaScript code that you would need and simplifies it, and makes it a lot easier to go ahead and do whatever it is that you want to do. It's also kind of nice because it's open source and cross-browser, which means it's free. Anyone can use it. It's pretty easy to download, or you can just link to it in your website. And finally, most websites use it. So it's pretty widespread. The user will never know that you're using it or not. It's blind to the user, but it is a lot easier when you're coding to use jQuery versus writing everything in JavaScript. And you'll also see later on in programming that the use of libraries is really, really helpful. And any library can be used for any number of different things. But basically, a library is some coder somewhere or some group of coders found a bunch of useful functions, put them together, and then put it into a library. And instead of having to rewrite those functions every single time you want to write that line of code, you can just refer to the library and use the functions from it. So it's really nice that people put it out there on the web for everyone to use for free. It'll definitely save you a lot of time using jQuery. It'll also be great as you continue your programming journey and see all the different number of libraries out there that exist. And in our other Coding 100 level videos, we'll show you a little bit about how to use things like SQL Alchemy and other Python type libraries. So those should be fun as well later on. But for now, I'll just show you a little bit more about what jQuery is. So the syntax here is, it's a unique, you just use a little $, then you put in whatever the jQuery selector is, and then dot method, and then parentheses. So as an example down here, what you can say is whenever a button in HTML is clicked, it will run the function color switcher. So this makes it really easy to have buttons. It makes it really easy to dynamically change your website. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on this later on. One important thing to do is to make sure that you actually add jQuery to HTML. So again, jQuery is an external library. So in order to actually access that library, you have to either add a link in your HTML to a service that provides that library to you. So this is an example of Google's API that will provide you jQuery, free of charge, and deliver it to your website. You can also just download the jQuery file. You can just Google search for where to download it, but you basically just download a jQuery file. You save it as whatever name you want, and then you link to it just like you would in any other JavaScript file that we've been looking at before. So a couple different ways to do it. I'll show you a little bit more detail once we get to our first project of exactly how to do this. And just general good practice, this is a jQuery function that's good to put in all of your JavaScript files. And what this function basically says is don't run any of your code until the entire page is loaded. So this prevents your code from doing funky things in case your users are using or accessing your website from a mobile device or some area without great Wi-Fi. This will prevent your web page from doing anything funky. So this is just generally good practice, not necessarily required, but definitely a good thing to do.